Hey everyone, my name is Ariel and I will be covering freedom of speech in the base book. I will be going over chapters 3.2.1 and 3.2.2, which is controlling speech. 3.2 Controlling speech. I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend you to the death your right to say it. Although people may not agree with your voice or opinions, everyone has a right to say what they want. As the book states in the beginning of chapter 3, the internet has brought us some astonishing opportunities, especially when it comes to free speech and how we are able to see and hear people's voices from across the world. The First Amendment is brought up multiple times throughout the section, so I wanted to give you a refresher. The First Amendment protects several basic freedoms in the U.S., including freedom of religion, speech, of the press, the right to assemble, and the right to petition government. Section 3.2.1 Offensive Speech. What is offensive speech? What should the law prohibit or restrict on the web? Offensive speech is a type of hate speech that can differ to anyone. It offends either a person or a group of people on their religion, sexuality, disabilities, race, or gender. What is insulting and disrespectful to you might not be to another person. In the clip art below, I thought it fit this discussion perfectly. Some people say they are okay with free speech until something rude is said to them. Here are a few examples. In Saudi Arabia, around 400,000 internet sites have been closed off because they don't want their community seeing any political or religious views that are conflicting with Islamic beliefs. In North Korea, the government has complete authority and vision on all websites. Because of that, only 4% has internet there. In 1973, Marvin Miller, the owner of a mail-order catalog business that advertised adult material, was found guilty of knowingly distributing obscene material, attempted to define obscenity, ruled obscenity is not protected speech, which was cause for the creation of the Miller test, which is also known as a three-pronged standard basic guidelines, which is whether the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the work, taken as a whole, appeals to the prurient interest. Number 2, whether the work depicts or describes, in a patently offensive way, sexual conduct specifically defined by the applicable state law. Whether the work, taken as a whole, lacks serious literacy, artistic, political, or scientific value. If a state obscenity law is thus limited, the First Amendment values are adequately protected by ultimate dependent appellate review of constitutional claims when necessary. In the year of 1990, a lot more non-technical people started to use the internet more frequently. A range of groups and organizations such as religion, organizations, anti-pornography groups, and others began a campaign to pass federal legislation to censor the internet. There was increasing publicity about porn on the net and also increasing political pressure, which ultimately led Congress to pass the Communications Decency Act, which is also known as the CDA, which was ultimately passed in 1996. In the CDA and the censorship laws that followed, Congress attempted to avoid an obvious conflict with the First Amendment by simply focusing on the children. The CDA made it a crime to make available to anyone under 18 any communication that is obscene or indecent. In 1957, there was a court case called Butler v. Michigan that had a 9-0 decision. It was a significant case that turned down the Michigan law that made it illegal to sell material that might be damaging to children. Justice Frankfurter said that the state must not reduce the adult population of Michigan to reading only what is fit for children. The CDA restricted indecent material accessible by children, but honestly, a child can access almost anything on the internet. Because of this, opponents say that it would have violated Justice Frankfurter's dictum, not only in Michigan, but the whole country. This brought a lot of uncertainties to some people. The confusion about possible prosecution could have a major worrisome effect on some adults. There was a huge aftermath in the Butler v. Michigan case. Although pornographic content was restricted from the youth, they are still able to see anything on the internet. The opponents of the CDA gave examples of info that is legal in print but might be cause for prosecution if available online, like the Bible or Shakespeare's works. Many supporters of the CDA believe that this was an overreaction. No one will be prosecuted for that such material, but there was still a clear lack in standards. In 1997, in the American Civil Liberties Union versus Janet Reno, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the censorship provisions of the CDA were unconstitutional. the courts made strong statements about the importance of protecting freedom of expression in general, and especially on the internet. The decision against the CDA established that the internet deserves the highest protection from government intrusion. In Figure 3.1, the book shows the freedom of speech guidelines. Distinguish speech from action, advocating illegal acts as usually legal. Laws must not chill expression of legal speech. Do not reduce adults to reading only what is fit for children. Solve speech problems by least restrictive means. This sums up fundamental courts that regulate if a censorship case or charge is unlawful. The judges said, the government cannot continue to protect children from pornography on the internet. There are vigorous enforcement existing laws criminalizing obscenity and child pornography. In the year of 1998, Congress tried again with the Child Online Protection Act, which is also known as COPA. This law was more limited than the CDA. COPA made it a federal crime for commercial websites to make available to minors material that is harmful for minors, as judged by community sites and standards. Once again, First Amendment supporters argued that the law was too broad and would threaten many art, news, and health sites. Courts evaluating COPA noted that because the web is accessible to everywhere, the community standards provision would restrict the entire county to the standards of the most conservative community. COPA restricts access to a substantial amount of online speech that is lawful for adults, and COPA's requirements that adults provide identification to view material not appropriate for minors, and would have an unconstitutional chilling effect on free speech. After more than 10 years of lawsuits and appeals, the Supreme Court declined to hear the last government appeal, and COPA finally died in year 2009. In the year 2000, the Congress passed the Child Internet Protection Act. It addressed many concerns about minors' accessibility to unlawful content on the web. CIPA requires all libraries and school districts to use a filter software on internet sites. In the beginning, there was a lot of issues with the technology. Some younger teens still accessed adult content, all while other students waited to use the same terminals. There was also use and views in racist and political websites. There was also polarizing filters that were used, so computer screens are only visible from the front, which protected the privacy of the user. In the quote in the book, it states, "Some librarians ask patrons to stop viewing pornography, just as they would ask someone to stop making noise." So to me, it just seems it's very common for people in those days to use the computers to see obscene material instead of using it for other more useful reasons. Outside of public schools and libraries, the trend of judicial decisions is to give the internet the First Amendment protection, which is similar to that of print media, that is, the highest degree of protection. The CIPA tried to overrule the court's verdicts of both the CDA and COPA by using federal power. Eventually, the Supreme Court ruled that the CIPA does not infringe on the First Amendment, as it does not require schools and libraries to have the filter. They do not require jail time for such act. For example, if an adult were to ask the librarian to drop the filter, then it must be dropped. Violent video games have become a huge topic of discussion since they first started appearing. Are they bad for children? Should we ban them? Are they more threatening than other means of violence because of the way they are portrayed? Many video games today have many murders, they're gory, bloody, they have torture and suffering in them, many violence towards women, and a lot of negativity against certain ethnic and religious groups. The book shows evidence that video games are beneficial for children. It involves more brain activity and function. Playing them may slow down the aging process, may help dyslexic kids read better, can be a pain reliever, and also improve eyesight. Essentially, it is just better than a child just sitting there and watching television. As some parents might argue that they are violent, these games and innocent violence have been going on for many years, even before our grandparents' time. In those generations, they used to play cops and robbers and very violent games like that. Alternatives to censorship. Are there solutions that do not menace free discussion and speech of serious subjects or deny adult material to adults who want it? There are many software filters that can be used at home for families with children. Parents can block websites with certain words, phrases, or images. They can block sites according to various rating systems, or they can potentially even block certain sites that they know about. Most of these software filters are free, in fact, and they can even look throughout the day of their children's activity feeds. As technology is never perfect, parents need to take the next step to ensure internet safety. Many new technologies have come up with new protections for different online sites. For example, for social network sites, they've developed technology to trace members who post child pornography online, and different emails. If a parent were to sign you up, they could set only a specified list for you to receive addresses from. For the video game industry, they have come up with a rating system for all of their games, and it tells you the amount of sex, profanity, and violence that there is. For the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, it provides information about risks to children and guidelines for reducing them. These are the websites that the FBI and other organizations use. Parents' responsibility to supervise their children has become increasingly difficult, especially because of the internet. Teaching them how to deal with inappropriate material and/or threats is a must. For example, in a grocery store, if a child or a teen were to buy obscene material, the grocery clerk could have said no. If they're in a playground, other parents or people could potentially see a harmful person. Online, it's harder to see and be aware of what's going on. The home used to be a safe haven from pornography and violent or hateful materials. Parents could relax when a child was playing in his or her bedroom. Now with the internet and cell phones, this is no longer true.